Welcome back to Crypto Equation, the place where we decode the future of money. And today we dive into one of the most surprising and misunderstood questions spreading across the digital asset world. The moment people saw Google AI output an XRP scenario involving the number 5,000, and instantly the internet did what the internet always does. It exploded with excitement, fear, confusion, and wild assumptions that had nothing to do with how artificial intelligence actually works. What you are about to hear has nothing to do with predictions or promises because AI does not predict the future. But it does reveal something profound about human psychology and how people interpret big numbers, especially in the world of digital finance. And when Google AI surfaced a hypothetical scenario involving XRP and 5,000, it triggered one of the most fascinating reactions we have ever seen. A reaction not only about price, but about belief, understanding, fear, and the way people relate to emerging technologies. This is the real story behind the shock and the misunderstanding, and once you understand it, everything changes. People saw the number 5,000 and instantly assumed prediction. They assumed AI had some secret insight, but that is not how artificial intelligence works. Google AI does not predict future values. It analyzes patterns. It compares scenarios. It interprets data. It reflects conversations happening across the digital world. It synthesizes public sentiment narratives, historical information, theoretical frameworks, and user prompts into possible scenarios, not guaranteed outcomes. And this is where the confusion begins. People mistake scenario for certainty. They mistake possibility for prediction, and they mistake output for truth. But artificial intelligence is not a crystal ball. It is a mirror that reflects back the questions and assumptions people already have inside their minds. So, when millions of people around the world talk about the future of XRP, when thousands of conversations discuss utility, adoption, regulation, technology, disruption, tokenization, and digital settlement models, the AI picks up on those patterns. And when people ask what would happen if XRP reached 5,000, what would have to occur, what kind of world would exist, what systems would need to be in place, the AI does what it is designed to do. It builds a scenario based on logic patterns and global infrastructure development, not a prediction, a scenario. And that scenario shocked people because it did not focus on the number. It focused on the world that would need to exist for such a moment to even be theoretically possible. That world was not one of hype. It was not one of speculation. It was a world where global settlement systems had evolved into real-time infrastructure. A world where cross-border transfers were instant. A world where digital assets were used as tools, not toys. A world where Ripple's technology or similar frameworks had reached massive institutional integration. A world where tokenization scaled into trillions. A world where financial rails operated digitally across continents. And the AI highlighted something that most people do not understand. The number is meaningless without the system behind it. What matters is not the 5,000. What matters is the infrastructure. But the moment people saw the number, shock took over. They skipped the explanation. They ignored the scenario. They forgot the context. They reacted emotionally. And this is the most important lesson of all. Humans react emotionally to big numbers. AI reacts logically. Humans see opportunity or fear. Artificial intelligence sees structure. Humans see the destination. Artificial intelligence sees the path required to reach it. That is why the artificial intelligence scenario felt shocking. It forced people to confront the difference between wishful thinking and structural transformation. The truth is, Google AI was not saying anything about XRP's price. It was saying something about the world. It was showing that if the world evolves in certain ways, if digital assets scale, if technology reaches maturity, if regulation aligns, if liquidity flows globally, and if settlement becomes real time, then certain numbers become theoretically possible. Not guaranteed, not predicted, theoretically possible within a transformed financial landscape. This is where the story becomes cinematic. Because if you zoom out and look at history, every major technological breakthrough goes through the same misunderstanding. People misinterpret early data. People misunderstand early signals. People look at scenarios as predictions, and they panic or celebrate without understanding the foundation. The internet went through this. Artificial intelligence is going through it now. Digital assets, including XRP, are experiencing the exact same psychology, but what makes this moment powerful is not the number the AI produced. It is the questions people are afraid to ask. Why are people so shocked by the idea of a world where blockchain technology becomes infrastructure? Why do people react emotionally to hypothetical scenarios? Why do people fear or obsess over AI outputs that they do not fully understand? The answer is simple. People are uncomfortable with uncertainty. They want clarity in a world that is transforming faster than they can process. And that discomfort reveals something profound about human behavior. When faced with uncertainty, people latch onto the most extreme interpretations. The biggest fears, the biggest hopes, the biggest numbers, because extremes feel more meaningful than nuance. 5,000 triggers emotion, in a way that gradual innovation does not. But what Google AI is really pointing to is not a number. It is a transformation. The transformation of value movement, the transformation of financial infrastructure, the transformation of digital economies. Solving these transformations is exactly what XRP was designed for. Not speculation, not price activity, utility. Utility that becomes essential in a world where money must move as fast as information. Utility that becomes relevant when institutions require interoperable digital rails. Utility that becomes foundational when tokenized assets become mainstream. That is what AI was analyzing. Not price, but possibility. The possibility of a world rebuilt on digital architecture. When people ask the A, I to imagine XRP at 5,000, the model did not treat it as a prediction. It treated it like an equation. It asked what world would need to exist for such a moment to even be a scenario. What infrastructure would be required? What regulations would need to be in place? What adoption levels would need to be achieved? What technological maturity would be necessary? What global integrations would need to be completed? And the result was not a forecast, it was a blueprint of a world that looks radically different from today. This is where the shock becomes educational, because once you understand that the A, I was mapping out a future state, not a future price, you begin to see the true lesson. The lesson is not about 5,000. It is about preparing for a world where digital assets matter, a world where early understanding becomes an advantage, a world where the people who study technology, instead of chasing hype, are the ones who recognize opportunity before the rest. Owning XRP is not about chasing a number. It is about understanding the world that is forming around you. And the AI scenario reveals that world clearly. It is a world where settlement becomes instant, a world where blockchain networks interconnect, a world where payments move globally without friction, a world where liquidity is digital, a world where institutions adopt technology, not speculation, a world where regulation provides clarity, a world where digital assets become infrastructure for global value. People saw 5,000 and focused on the number. But the number is irrelevant without the world behind it. And that is the message people missed. The message that Google AI was trying to reveal. It was not predicting anything. It was explaining what transformation looks like. And transformation always feels shocking at first. To understand this transformation, you must step back from emotion and step into analysis. Because analysis reveals that we are already moving in the direction that AI described, even if the world has not noticed yet. Payment rails are being upgraded. Cross-border pilots are expanding. Digital asset custody services are becoming regulated. Banks are integrating blockchain into settlement layers. Tokenization is accelerating across industries. These are not predictions. These are events happening today, quietly, consistently, globally. This is why the AI scenario hit people so hard. It forced them to think beyond the moment, to think beyond the volatility, to think beyond the speculation, and to confront a deeper truth. The truth that innovation reshapes entire industries before the public understands what happened. By the time the world wakes up, the transformation is already complete. XRP exists within this transformation, not because of speculation, but because of design. A design focused on speed, liquidity, interoperability, and global settlement efficiency. A design that aligns with the direction the world is moving. Not immediately, not dramatically, but inevitably. That inevitability is what AI analyzed, not the number, the direction. And when you understand that direction, you realize that the shock people felt was not about AI or XRP. It was about themselves. It was about their relationship with uncertainty, their fear of missing out, their hope for change, their confusion about technology, their emotional reaction to numbers that do not yet make sense in the current world. But the world is not staying the same. It is changing rapidly. This is why the truth behind Google AI's XRP scenario is not shocking at all when you understand the bigger picture. In fact, it becomes obvious. Because A, I gave people what they asked for a hypothetical scenario. And that scenario revealed not price, but possibility. The possibility of a world that looks completely different from the one we know now. And if that world emerges, the number becomes irrelevant. What matters is readiness, understanding, awareness, and perspective. Because the next part of the story reveals something even more important, something that turns the shock into clarity and the confusion into understanding. Because what the AI scenario hinted at is not a number, but a pattern unfolding right now in front of us. And once you see that pattern, you will never look at the future of digital assets the same way again. The deeper you look into the scenario, the more you realize that I was not pointing toward a destination, but revealing the kind of world that would need to exist for such a scenario to even be considered realistic. And that world is not built overnight. It is built through years of incremental transformation, quiet upgrades, regulatory milestones, institutional experimentation, technological evolution. All of it happening behind the scenes, long before the public is aware. This is the part people overlook while getting lost in the shock of a number. They forget that the world changes slowly at first, and then all at once. They forget that every major shift begins as a whisper before it becomes a reality. That is exactly what artificial intelligence highlighted. It highlighted the whisper of a world becoming something new. And the people who understand the whisper are the ones who will never again be confused by scenarios like this. They understand that numbers are irrelevant without context, and context is everything. Understanding that context requires understanding the speed at which digital infrastructure is evolving. Most people think financial systems are static, traditional, rigid, immovable. But the truth is, banks, payment companies, central banks, governments, and technology providers are all engaged in one of the largest global upgrades of the last century. They are rebuilding the financial system from the inside out, replacing friction with speed, replacing borders with interoperability, replacing paperwork with automation, replacing settlement delays with real-time confirmation. This transformation is not theoretical, it is happening now. Yet because it does not make daily headlines, most people believe nothing has changed. But AI, with its ability to analyze millions of global data points, sees the shift clearly. It sees that the foundations for a digital value network are being built step by step. This is the true essence behind the scenario. The AI was not measuring price potential. It was measuring infrastructural momentum. It was looking at how digital assets fit into a world where instant liquidity is not optional, but fundamental. It was highlighting the alignment between XRP's capabilities and the needs of a rapidly modernizing global financial system. It was showing that if the world moves toward full digitization, utility-driven assets become critical, and assets with no real function fade away. In that future world, XRP is not a speculative instrument. It is a tool, a bridge, a mechanism for value movement. And I recognize that technological alignment. People misinterpreted this because they are used to thinking reactively. They think in terms of charts. They think in terms of market cycles. They think in terms of hype and headlines. But AI thinks in terms of systems. It sees beyond emotion. And the scenario it produced forced people to momentarily see the world through that lens. That is what created the shock. Not because the number meant anything, but because it briefly forced people to confront a future they had not yet imagined. To continue understanding this, you must study the evolution of digital infrastructure already underway. Central banks are developing digital currencies that operate in real time. Payment providers are adopting messaging standards that support digital asset integration. Financial institutions are experimenting with tokenization and settlement networks. Corporations are exploring digital accounting frameworks. Sovereign nations are proposing digital identity systems. These are not predictions. These are publicly disclosed initiatives already in development. AI connected these dots and built a scenario around the long-term trajectory of global financial modernization. And the scenario reveals something else that most people overlook. The transformation of global finance will not depend on public excitement. It will depend on institutional necessity. Institutions do not adopt technologies because of hype. They adopt them because they reduce cost, increase efficiency, eliminate friction, and create competitive advantage. If a system saves billions in operational expenses, it becomes inevitable. This is where XRP's design becomes significant. Its architecture aligns with what institutions actually need, not with what retail investors hope for. Artificial intelligence recognized that alignment because it was trained to analyze real-world utility. The scenario also exposed the gap between institutional timelines and public expectations. Retail investors expect immediate results. They expect rapid shifts. They expect dramatic announcements. But institutions operate on timelines measured in years, not weeks. Their upgrades take time. Their compliance processes take time. Their integration testing takes time. And most of this happens silently. The world never sees the preparation, only the final implementation. But AI sees the preparation forming across sectors. It sees the gradual shift toward a new financial architecture. and it builds scenarios based on that shift, not on emotional volatility. This is the perspective most people missed when they reacted to the AI scenario. They judged it emotionally instead of analytically. They judged the future using the lens of the present. They expected AI to simulate the current world instead of imagining a transformed one. But the future never looks like the present, and the scenario was a reminder that the world we live in today is temporary. The systems around us are temporary. The limitations we accept today will disappear tomorrow, and digital infrastructure will replace them piece by piece. The deeper implication of the scenario is this: the world is moving toward a state where digital value becomes as fluid as information. This means that cross-border friction will not exist, settlement delays will not exist, manual compliance procedures will not exist, fragmented liquidity will not exist. Instead, the world will operate on unified digital rails, where value flows at the speed of code. The AI scenario described a world where digital efficiency is normal. People reacted to the number because they do not yet believe that world is possible. Yet all the signs show that it is coming. Look at how rapidly digital payments have replaced cash. Look at how quickly mobile banking replaced physical branches. Look at how streaming replaced distribution chains. Look at how AI is replacing manual tasks. Look at how tokenized assets are replacing outdated accounting. Every industry that can be digitized eventually will be digitized. Money is the final frontier. This is why AI included XRP in its scenario, not because of speculation, but because of architecture. XRP was designed for a world that requires instant global settlement, a world that demands interoperability, a world undergoing transformation, a world moving toward tokenization, a world where infrastructure matters more than narratives. This is why the AI saw XRP as relevant. It is not predicting success. It is recognizing alignment. People who reacted emotionally missed this completely. But the people who study technology understand the deeper meaning. They understand that digital assets will not all survive long term. Only those with real functionality will. And that functionality becomes valuable only after global systems fully evolve. That evolution is what the AI scenario described. The scenario also exposes something important about human psychology. People want certainty. They want predictions. They want guarantees. They want someone to tell them exactly what the future will look like. But certainty is impossible in periods of transformation. Only understanding is possible. And understanding is far more valuable, because understanding lets you recognize opportunity long before the world sees it. That is the quiet advantage the scenario unintentionally revealed. When people asked the AI to describe a world where XRP reached 5,000, they unknowingly asked it to describe a world where digital infrastructure reached full maturity, and the AI answered truthfully, not with a prediction but with a map of technological evolution, a map of global modernization, a map of institutional adoption, a map of financial transformation, a map of a future most people have never imagined. When you see the scenario through this lens, the shock disappears. It becomes clarity. The number does not matter. What matters is the direction of global systems. What matters is the momentum of digital transformation. What matters is the role of utility assets in that transformation. What matters is the shift from speculation to infrastructure. What matters is understanding the world being built. Because the truth is this: I was not predicting the price of XRP. It was predicting the end of the old financial world and the birth of the new one. The number was only a symbol of a future that will one day feel inevitable, a future shaped by speed, efficiency, interoperability, and digital liquidity. A future where the networks built for utility become the backbone of the global economy. People were shocked by the scenario because they are not yet prepared to accept how much the world is about to change. But the change is coming quietly, consistently, inevitably. And the people who take the time to understand the transformation, instead of reacting to numbers, will be the ones who enter the next financial era with clarity rather than confusion. Because the future of money will not be decided by predictions. It will be decided by the technology that moves it. And that is the only truth worth paying attention to. Because the next part of this story reveals something even more important, something that turns the shock into clarity and the confusion into understanding. Because what the AI scenario hinted at is not a number but a pattern unfolding right now in front of us. And once you see that pattern, you will never look at the future of digital assets the same way again.